What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Daily Call.
Today, we are talking about the power of
Standing out
and putting yourself out there.
Yep.
We talked about branding last week, a few weeks ago. I'm not really sure when. And we went over the difference between traditional branding and branding inside of your business. And we also went over the difference between branding and marketing. But today we want to get deeper into that branding side of things.
Yeah, and there's obvious examples of really standing out. You know, you've seen some of the bigger names like Zach George and Victoria Stilwell, and even people like Cesar Millan. And regardless of whether you agree with their methods or how they do things, or whether or not you think they're a good trainer, doesn't make a difference because they're getting people's attention. They're putting themselves out there, and people are taking notice. And attention is obviously an important part of it, an important aspect of all of this. But there's also the element of, like, if you're just drown out in a sea of noise in this industry where everybody's trying to make content, everybody's trying to get noticed, but everybody looks the same. We have to remember that there's another element, and it's differentiation, that really causes you to have a distinction between everybody else and what they're doing. And obviously these things are important. So we wanted to bring this to your attention, kind of talk a little bit about it. And if you guys have questions, use the chat function and just drop a message in there and let us know so that we can kind of feed off what you guys have questions about and kind of go from there.
Yeah. And as you guys know, Dallas and I talk to trainers all day, every day. And this is a huge thing that comes up. So we've talked to hundreds of trainers over the past few months, and we haven't talked to a trainer in those hundreds that really has their branding or their messaging down. But every trainer that Dallas talks to, because of the filter system that trainers go through before they talk to us, they all have, do you think 100% of them have some unique value, or you think 90% of them?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I guess sometimes you'll talk to trainers who haven't really started yet, but for the most part, if we talk to trainers who have a business, sorry, I'm multitasking every time. I might have to get Cheyenne on these calls to approve people. So we talked to a bunch of people just joined, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So we're talking about branding today, but not only branding, we're talking about having a unique message and really
power of standing
how
out.
you put yourself out there. So we were talking about how Dallas we both talked to a lot of trainers, but we've talked to hundreds of trainers recently. And I would say 99% of them have really a unique offer. They have a unique surface. They have a unique way of thinking about training, about how they offer training, about how they want to offer training. And really, they have this picture in their head. They paint this picture of what they're all about, what they stand for, what they want to do, the impact that they want to make, the goals that they want to have. And I think one of the reasons why people like doing their coaching call with Dallas so much is because he takes them through this process where they can be vulnerable and really talk about how they actually feel. Like, we're not judging anybody, by how they're training or how they're doing business or how much money they're making or whatever. We're here to help. And that is the unique. So each one of you did a call with Dallas. You all have this unique offer, this unique personality, this unique way of thinking about training. But 100% of trainers that Dallas has talked to don't have their branding down where that message is showing up inside of their marketing.
I'll add to that. I think, we've got a way of extracting this information and trying to get your mind going, get the gears turning so that you can elaborate a little bit more effectively about what it is that you do, how your service is unique.
It takes a lot. It takes a lot.
There's, like, all of our process. You guys have all gone through the process of how we generate leads, how we interact with clients, how we take them through several different steps, and how we train you guys and teach you and educate you through the process. But really what I find to be lacking in this industry as a whole, before we've gone through that process of extracting this information from you and finding what makes you unique and coming up with these ideas, a lot of people struggle. You've got all that internally. You know what your belief systems are. You know what your values are. You know what you can do. You're confident in your abilities. But if nobody can see that and nobody has the ability to extract that information from you, it lies dormant in your mind and it doesn't do anybody any good. It's like I tell trainers all the time. You could be the best trainer in the world, but if you don't know how to convey that information to somebody to illustrate your uniqueness and what differentiates you and what causes that distinction between everything else out there and what you offer, all that knowledge that you've accumulated over the years goes to waste because people can't see it. They don't get to experience it. And so, yeah, it's great. You can produce results for your clients, but wouldn't it be better if people really knew what you stood for, what your purpose was, what your area of expertise is, why you're dedicated, why this is your life's mission, why, all these things. If you can help people to really see behind the curtain it adds so much depth to your offer, and people become aligned with it. People become attracted to it. It resonates with them on a deeper level. And I got to tell you, like, it's a huge opportunity for you because most of the trainers out there, they're not doing any of that stuff. And so you have to realize that there's this huge opportunity where this industry as a whole has been lacking for so many years because people have been doing the same things for so long. Most of the marketing and advertising is very surface level. But I got to tell you another thing. People want to do business with other people and other businesses that they trust. And people don't trust you if all they see is the surface level stuff. Like, hey, I'm a trainer. Look at what I can do. I can solve your problem. Buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this. It doesn't really appeal to them. And oftentimes people put their guard up. And so what Katie's trying to explain here is that giving people an opportunity to see behind the scenes, behind the curtain, and to understand who you are and what drives you creates such more of an intrigue and appeal for people and gives you an opportunity to build a relationship before somebody ever has an opportunity to work with you. Like, how could it be any better than that? Everything about business is about relationships, and everything about marketing is about transactions. So if you can incorporate the two things, you can build an amazing brand for yourself, something that people instantly understand what it's all about. It resonates with them and they feel aligned with it. And the huge opportunity, again, is that most trainers aren't doing that. So if you can really start to articulate your purpose, your mission, your values, your beliefs, why you do this, how this is your mission in life, how this is your purpose, this is the reason that you're on planet Earth, it will elevate your status so much higher in the minds of the people who desperately need your help, but are struggling to figure out and determine who they're supposed to be working with. And as all you guys know, I mean, there's a lot of trainers out there that don't take things as seriously as you do. Like, we're very selective in the clients that we bring on board. We don't give this information to just anyone. It doesn't do this industry any good to empower trainers who don't give a shit. Like, we're in this because we want to see more dogs stay in their homes. That's why Katie and I got involved in this industry. And so if we're able to help you to understand what's necessary to grab people's attention, build a relationship, and get them to the point where they feel like they're connected with you, you're going to have a better job of helping more people to make the right decision the first time around. Because if they hire the wrong trainer, chances are a great many of them just end up giving up, throwing in the towel. Unacceptable.
And most of you have clients that love you. So some of you are starting at the beginning and you're just getting your clients, but most of you have clients that love you and they are committed to you, and you have those relationships, you have those one-on-ones, and there's a reason that they love you. And that is your branding, but that branding is internal. So that conversation you're having with them, that energy that you're putting out with them, that's this authentic relationship that you're having with them. So the hard part is taking that energy, taking that information, taking your thoughts and translating that into marketing, into branding, into putting it out there to the world. And it's one of those things where it's not necessarily super hard. It's just, it takes strategy and it takes effort to do it. And if you look at big brands in any industry, and I'm talking about big brands, meaning like personal branding. So that means it's like a person or a business that's very closely connected to a mission. What you see is they tell the same stories over and over again. And the stories are very simple, but they deliver on the message that the person or the brand believes in. But even so, every time I talk about Cesar Millan or Dog Daddy or Victoria, so everybody has an opinion, right? A lot of people don't like them. It doesn't matter if you love them. It doesn't matter if you hate them. They learned how to brand themselves. You know what their personality is about. The reason why you hate them, if you hate them, is because you know what they stand for and you don't stand for that thing. And every time you put yourself out there, no matter what your message is, you're always going to have people that hate you. And you're probably going to have more people that hate you at first than love you, because people are very resistant to showing public support. It's crazy. But if you're able to get through that time and just keep going and keep putting your message out there and not care, you're not trying to create a false public message. You're just trying to be true to who you are and what you believe in. You'll have people who start to support you. And those people are so authentic in their support because they really appreciate that you put yourself out there and that you branded yourself and that you share who you are and what you're all about. So when we talk about this personal branding, it's really just about figuring out, okay, what do I stand for and what message do I want to share with the world? Like, what message do I want what values do I want my clients to have that I have, so they align with those values? And then what stories, what messages can I put out there that are going to illustrate that? And then it's about putting those stories out there and those messages out there over and over and over again. And that's the crazy part, is it's not about all this information. It's not like having a website that has like 8 paragraphs about who you are and where you came from and how you started and what you're all about. It's like having these simple messages that you put out time and time and time again and people start to notice and people start to pay attention.
And I think that a lot of individuals, especially trainers who want to get their message out there, have this fear of being redundant. That redundancy prevents you from actually displaying yourself to the height that you need to. And a lot of times I think trainers feel like, well, I've already said this and I've already done content based on this and I've already made a video about this. I already talked to people about this. Everyone must already know these things about me. The reality is people don't know shit about you. People have a very hard time understanding who you are.
What you have to realize is, yes, you're saying the same stuff over and over and over again. You're telling the same story over and over again, and that's okay. Like, that's what you want people to connect to, and that's what you want people to identify with when they think about you.
Yeah, it's true. You know, and one of the things that I've learned in many years of having conversations with people, because that's really what my job is just to interact, converse with people, figure out what's going on, figure out what they're struggling with, and then bounce ideas around to hopefully help them solve the problems that they're dealing with. Your job is very much the same. And what I've learned in all these years is that it's important to reflect on the conversations that you have. If you leave a conversation and you just have this feeling, wow, that really went great. Like, I feel like they got a lot from that conversation. I felt really good. I was in my flow. You want to take a moment to reflect on that and do it as soon as you can. I mean, sometimes you're hopping in the car and you're driving, you got a million things going on. At the very latest, by the end of the day, jot down some notes. If there were certain things, certain aspects of the conversation that can be documented, like certain things that you did or said, or the way that you behaved, try to document those things so that you can replicate that experience. And as you go through the reps and you have your next conversations and certain phrases maybe that you said that people really, it hit home for them, write those things down and test them again and again and again. Create and compile a book of stories. You know, if you've got 8 or 10 really good stories that you can refine down to, like Katie said, 3 or 4, and you can interweave those stories into the conversations that you're having in a meaningful way that people feel like it pertains to them as much as it pertains to you, then you're going to get a much better response, especially in the process of not just delivering service, but in the process of helping people make decisions, right? The more closely they feel aligned with you, the easier and more effortless it becomes for them to make a decision to move forward with you. And oftentimes, you know, people, you know, they don't take the time to refine and polish their, for example, sales process. And when they're just going through the motions, especially if it's somebody who's just trying to read a script that somebody else wrote and it doesn't really feel like their own, it's not authentic, it's not genuine, just going through more and more reps isn't going to perfect that process. You have to make it your own. You have to really understand how people are responding and why they're responding the way that they are. That's how you get better at it. And so you can take this idea and this concept and extrapolate it out into all the different varieties of ways that you communicate with your audience, with your leads, with your clients, and think about how it applies. Because if you can tell those same stories that got a great response in your sales presentation, but you can broadcast that message to your larger audience who hasn't heard that story before, make that story something that they come back to and they hear it over and over again. Because if it resonates, they will become more closely aligned with the story and with you over time. And so again, don't worry about redundancy. It's not about redundancy. People love hearing from you, especially if what you're saying is meaningful and if it has some sort of, you know, appropriate mechanism of like delivery where they feel it too. If you can elicit emotion from people as a function of telling them a story, you're going to have a deeper connection with your audience. You're going to have a deeper connection when someone from your audience becomes a lead, when that lead becomes an appointment, when that appointment becomes, you know, somebody that converts into a sold prospect and they become an actual paying client. Like, you want to take them through that journey so that they know you and like you and trust you, and you reinforce it at every step of that process. And that's how you build like a loyal client base. It starts with your audience and it moves through the journey and people become loyal. They become ambassadors of your brand because they believe in what you have to say. They believe in you. They get great results from you. And then they shout from the rooftops and tell everybody about it. So in terms of what this started out to be, the power of putting yourself out there or making a name for yourself, it is important, but you have to think of the bigger picture. Like, why are we doing it? We want everybody to have that experience, no matter what area of the journey or the process they're in, you know, and it needs to be consistent. And that's why I say, you know, polishing your processes, figuring out what people respond to well, and then continuing to tell those stories is what's going to polish and perfect this system. And it's going to get you the response that you're looking for. But it takes time and it takes effort and it takes a pattern of consistency, which is what you teach your clients. You got to be consistent. So follow that same structure of what you teach your clients and apply it to how you run your business, and you will see things grow and expand. And that's really what it's about.
Yeah. And the other thing that we see a lot is when trainers are putting their thoughts out there and their opinions and what they stand for, they're really speaking to other trainers and they forget to speak to their potential clients. That is like the biggest thing. So if you are on social media, which you probably are, and you're looking at Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, whatever it is, and you see all the trainer drama that's going on and all the trainers posting and all your friends, they're all speaking to each other. They're not speaking to their potential client. They're all speaking about things that dog trainers think about and are concerned about. But when you're trying to reach your client, you really have to think about how they respond and how they think and what they understand. And one thing that really helps with this is if you think about your client, like think about your favorite client or your ideal client or what your client looks like and what they think about. And when you put your message out there, have it make it so you're talking to that person. So put it together so you're talking to one person and one person only. And it makes it so much easier to start to really develop your message. If you think about all those big name dog trainers, whether you love them or hate them, they're not paying attention to the love and hate. They're paying attention to their training clients. And that's the biggest difference is everything that they're putting out there is not, it's not to get other dog trainers involved. It's to get dog owners involved. And that's really a shift that's you have to make in any part of your business, right? In any part of your process.
Yeah, we saw it all the
Sales,
time in
marketing,
fitness.
yeah, all the time.
Fitness, you know, it would,
And it was like CrossFit versus bar versus yoga versus lifting versus cardio. It was like this same thing as the dog training world. It's like
just an ongoing
argument
conversation.
all the time. But you know how much clients don't care? Like when clients want to lose weight and get fit, they don't care if it's CrossFit, lifting, cardio. They don't care. They don't want to hear about any of that. They just want to hear about the result, right? And they just want to hear about the journey and the commitment. And
that's why we always say you have to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
And if it's not clear, hopefully that example will illustrate what we're talking about.
So I have an example I can give you that actually it happened internally on our team, but also it happens with dog trainers all the time. So as you guys know, I'm on Facebook. Michaela's on there with me, but either way, I see posts, I see stuff, and I'll see posts like, oh, just trainer rant. I'm going to bitch about this client not showing up or not doing the work or asking for a refund or whatever, from dog trainers talking about their clients. And so we had a problem in the past, which we talked about, which we weren't getting trainers to show up for their initial call with us. Totally makes sense. Like that in 2020, we were brand new to the industry. We were just getting to know people on a professional level. But recently, I think this year, Dallas made a video, which maybe you guys saw, about not showing up. Okay. And it was for dog trainers. And it's about not showing up to their appointments with us, not showing up in general, right? I can't even remember exactly what it was, but so if you take that situation, so let's say that you have a business, you have dog training clients booked, they're not showing up, whether it's for their consult, for their meeting, whatever it is. So you're making all these appointments, you're making all these phone calls, you're making all these scheduled meetups. And let's say your show rate is like 30%. And it's like, okay, I have all these people who are booking, nobody's showing up. If you bitched at another trainer, you would say, oh my gosh, this is so annoying. I have all these people booking and like none of them are showing up, right? But that's not a message that you would say to your potential clients, hopefully. You would be like, oh my gosh, you're so annoying, you're not showing up. But if you reframe that, you might talk to your potential client about how them not showing up means they're not going to get a result, right? So it's the exact same thought process issue, right? So it's like, if you don't show up, we can't help you, which is really the deep down issue. Yes, you're wasting your time. Yes, it's really frustrating to do all the admin work to book those people. But overall, your mission is to help dogs. And if people don't show up, you cannot help them. So that is a way to think about like, okay, it's the same message, but how do I put that message in front of my potential clients instead of internally, in front of other dog trainers? And with that example, so some people might watch that video and be like, this is offensive. Like it is way too direct to be like, if you don't show up, I can't help you. So Dallas is putting himself out there with his genuine personality of like, hey, I'm not afraid to confront you and I'm not afraid to upset you if the message is going to help you in the long run. And that is 100% Dallas. Is like, if this is going to help you get to the result, I don't care if we have to get in a little something in between, right? He does it with love. He says it with integrity. He says it because he knows that in the long run, it's going to help people to show up, right?
Because my duty and responsibility is to help trainers get out of the rut that they're stuck in. And if that means I have to confront you guys and trainers in general, then that's what I have to do. Because as a good coach, and you should all be doing this with your clients, if somebody continually cancels last minute or they want to put their training on hold and then the next week they want to put it on hold again, at a certain point, you have to confront them and say, hey, look, like we're not going to get the results if you don't put in the work.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. So there was one other thing at a certain point in the conversation, we were talking about trainers and how they're communicating publicly. And it reminded me of a topic that came up, I think it was a couple of years ago, where it's like, don't tell an inside joke. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that's my thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
telling inside jokes. It's just important that you're clearly communicating with your audience, because sometimes I see a lot of people just say stuff that they think everybody's going to understand, but they don't get any comments. They don't get, a lot of feedback, and then they wonder why. It's because you're not clearly communicating. It's almost as if you're telling an inside joke and people don't understand. They
Yeah.
don't receive the message. So again, just a really important topic is to know your audience, communicate clearly with them, and be consistent in your message. Like, pick a lane, figure out what your values and your beliefs are, talk about them loud, talk about them often, and be consistent in your approach. So it's got to be clear, it's got to be consistent, and has to happen
In plain English.
in plain English
Yeah.
quite often. So,
And then the other thing that we see is the difference between branding, like if you think about Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Nike, like traditional branding versus personal branding. Big corporations are getting way more into personal branding than they ever have before because they know that it works. That's why influencers exist. That's why there's people that will make videos for you. But there's still a big difference between those two things. And trainers are oftentimes still stuck in the mode of, okay, what colors should I use? What logo should I use? What should my website look like? What should my branding look like? But it's almost 2025. I was gonna say in 2024 and 2025, your personal branding matters a lot more than like your branding, like your colors, your logo, your website, because people are going to connect to you personally. Trust levels are lower and there's just noise and trainers everywhere. So the color of your logo or what your website looks like isn't going to be like the key to creating a brand.
your beliefs will.
Yeah.
That will be the key.
So start with that.
People want to know you and like you and trust you. The best way to get them to do that is to share your beliefs and your values. You guys all know our story, right? I'm sure I've told every one of you who's here right now and everyone who's going to be listening to this when we post the replay, that you know where we came from. You know the struggles that we had. You know that we came from fitness and we've been through the ringer and we had to figure all this shit out for ourselves. And you guys all know that story. Most of you probably know my story about Walter, or our story about Walter.
Walter.
Yeah. Our French bulldog. I love this dog like he was my son, but he was vicious. He was broken mentally. He was wonderful at times, but then something would snap and he would just start biting.
He was never wonderful.
I love him. He was like my son.
Yeah.
But it's another perfect example of like advertising versus branding, right? And what I was looking for was somebody who understood my struggles, somebody who understood my difficulties. And most of the advertising that I saw didn't appeal to me. It didn't intrigue me.
You're talking about hiring a trainer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because most of the advertising out there is very impersonal. It's just like, hey, I can train your dog. I do these 3 services and schedule and book an appointment. I wanted to do business with somebody that I trusted. And so that's a really good example of how you need to think about, like, you want people to embrace your concepts, but they're not just going to do that automatically. You have to give them a reason to stand behind you and to be intrigued and to really believe in what you believe. That's really what it is. You want people to believe what you believe. And if you can get them to do that, they're like putty in your hand, and they will be loyal customers and they will refer everybody just like them to you. And you will have a sustainable business that will predictably grow. But if you don't showcase and share with people what you stand for, what you believe, what your values are, you're always going to be looking for the next client. You want to build an audience. That's what it's about, right? Marketing is transactional. Audiences, those are relational. And people will believe in what you believe because they'll be following you for so long and they'll understand exactly what you stand for. So, any other questions?
Yeah, Susie had a good question. She
Yes.
asked right before you shared your story, but does that include talking about our own struggles and experiences with our own dogs? Yes, that is a huge part of it. And I think one thing I'm going to add, I know this call is going on, it's a long call, but I think it's important, is stories that matter can be like micro stories. They don't have to be some big, huge disaster. If it was meaningful to you, that story was relatable to somebody else. Like, we have our stories with our dogs, but there's also really simple stories. Like, I got my first dog when I was 17 years old. She just got pushed on me. Like, I didn't really mean to get a dog. And she was a really good dog. Dallas didn't get along with her.
It's so not true. I've never met a dog I didn't get along with. He just wasn't my favorite.
I'm gonna punch you. So anyway, that wasn't the story. The story was, got that dog, loved her. And I was like, okay, I love dogs. This is my whole life. This is everything I'm going to do. And then I wanted 10 dogs. And then we got our second dog and I was like, oh, not every dog is like as easy as having this one little long-haired Chihuahua that's like sleeps in a ball no matter what I do. Like she just doesn't do anything. So that right there is a story that people can relate to. It's like the story of you get your first dog, they hang out with you everywhere. You're 17, so you have the flexibility in life to hang out with your dog all day. And then you decide to get your next dog and you're like, oh, not as easy, right?
And the other thing I want to add to that, Susie, it's a great question. And I think that trainers oftentimes feel like they need to maintain this authority position and act like they've never had any difficulty, like you've been an expert forever. Showcasing, what's the word I'm looking for? Damaging admissions are very powerful, something I learned a long time ago. But if you can admit some of your mistakes and maybe some of the troubles that you've had, I don't know if that pertains to what you're suggesting here, but yeah, like you're not perfect. You didn't know everything that you know today.
Yeah.
Like you went through a journey and it caused you to become the person that you are and to have all the knowledge that you've accumulated now. So to pull back the curtain and show people some of the difficulties and struggles that you've had, yeah, it's fucking powerful because people always think, well, they're not going to understand my problem. They're going to think I'm silly for not being able to figure this out on my own. Like, no, relate to people.
Yeah.
Help them understand you've been through all the same stuff. What did I do with all of you? I told you all, like, we fucked everything up. We weren't perfect.
You have to wash your mouth out with soap after
we
this.
made every mistake, right? We had to figure it out. And that's how we got to the point where we could share this information and educate you guys. Like, you all know that part about us. So use that and apply that to your clients because it's meaningful. It helps them to feel related, or it's relatable to them, and it causes a deeper connection. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah, and like simple stories. Like let's say that you got your first dog and you were completely against crates because you thought crates were like jail, but now you're totally about crates. Like tell that story. Or I mean, you know, like everybody has their own ideas around halters versus collars versus halties, but I remember I had a dog and I tried everything on him. And then finally I just used a normal collar instead of a halter or halty, and then he was fine, right? So it's like those little stories, people can really relate to that.
Amy says that explains it. I have a long-haired Chihuahua and I can relate. That is a great example of what you're talking about, right? Yes, it is. Well, cool. I'm good that I'm glad that this was hitting home. Thanks for your comments, guys. If there are other things that we can expand on this, you know, feel free to use the Q&A, post questions in there. If you can't make it to one of our calls, we always post the replay. So if you have a question and you can't make it on because you're like training or something, it's no big deal. You can always get your question answered by us, and then you can watch the replay and get that answer and put it to use.
And we have 2 new foster dogs showing up today in a few hours, so wish us luck with that.
Yeah, so now we have...
Are you counting the puppies?
So now we have 6 livestock guardian dogs? Because we have Rue, we have
5. Oh yeah, I mean, if you count Charles as a livestock
Rue and
guardian
Valerie.
dog. I have a little foster puppy right now, and he decided not to be a livestock guardian dog. I think he's a pet.
He's
That's
a pet
okay.
No, but we've got our 2 like foundational livestock guardian
That
dogs,
works, yeah.
Kenga and Rue. It's actually Rue and Kenga, but you can.
No, it's Kenga and Rue.
Well, Rue was here first, but anyhow, Rue's like the most badass dog ever. He's the patrol,
And he's so patient with new dogs.
you've seen photos of him up on the hilltops and stuff. So he finds a perch and he just waits. And we're out in the middle of Wyoming, right at the base of the Bighorn Mountains. So, you know, we've got coyotes that come.
The coyotes have been, I think they have fun with it. The coyotes have been messing with them.
Yeah. So Rue and Kanga, they let them know who's boss, and they do a really great job. Kanga is more like the mom dog. She's like Mother Goose. And so she's more livestock oriented, and Rue is just the ass kicker. He just wants to wreck things.
Yeah, Kanga will go lay by a new sheep that got ditched by the mom until I show up. So
Yeah.
she'll keep them
Look
warm.
it clean and yeah.
Yeah, but we have 2 boys showing up today, so we'll see.
They had no place to go, and that's unacceptable.
I think we'll be good.
Anyhow,
We'll keep you up to date.
all right, guys.
All right.
Thanks for being on.
Noon.
See you then.
Okay, bye.